Hello there, and welcome to Claret and Booze. My name's John, aka Virgil, and this is my daily ramble. So, where to start? Well, it's going to be a little bit self-indulgent, a little bit like Nick's was yesterday. But obviously, as you probably know, if you watch our shows, me and Nick's opinions often vary. Now, obviously, the Declan Rice saga, it's not finalised yet. The deal's been agreed in principle, but obviously the timescales of payments, etc., are to be nailed out and put to bed. And then we're expecting the deal to be done fairly shortly. Now, what I want to talk about today is the outcry by some sections of the fan base who are understandably, in some ways, quite angry, who are understandably quite disappointed. Now, it was no shock to us that Declan Rice would probably be leaving at the end of this season as it's come about. And, you know, we was all expecting him to go. And the fact that he lifted the European trophy after so many years of us not seeing a trophy being lifted, to me, was a fantastic send-off. And he quite rightly got the accolades that he deserved. But some of the comments and some of the things that people are saying about Rice, really has got my back up. Now, we're all entitled to our opinions. But I think some of the opinions, some of the comments that I'm seeing, some of the conversations that I'm having, personally, I think they're particularly strong. I think they're bang out of order. And I think, to coin a phrase that I've heard used many times before, people really need to give their head a wobble. Now, I'm not judging people for having a difference of opinions to me. Football is a game of opinions and we're all entitled to them. But how people can call Declan Rice a Judas, how people can question his morality, his morals, and how people can almost want him to. I've seen people say they want him to get injured. I've seen people suggest that, wouldn't it be great if his knee blew up in the first game? I mean, to me, that stinks of. It's vile, some of the comments, and I'm sorry if any of you watching have made these comments or feel this way, but I just can't get my head around it. I mean, look. I detest Arsenal. Long before the Rice saga, I've always had a massive problem with Arsenal. And people are often surprised when I often say that I have more disgust or hatred for Arsenal than I do Spurs. But that's purely a personal thing because, as you know, 90% of my family are from North London and are Arsenal fans. Now, the disdain that I have from them is ongoing for a number of years. And quite rightly, a lot of West Ham fans' hatred towards Arsenal has been quite recent. And indeed, some is very recent. If you would have seen me, Gary and Nick, our take on the AFTV comment by one of their guests that West Ham are a crap club, the attitude that guy showed towards us, the disdain that he gave towards our great club was disgusting, and quite rightly got everyone's back up, and Nicky Hawkins of West Ham Fan TV and Dan Lawless held it together very well on that show, on that podcast, because if it was me, I'm not sure if I could have bit my lip as well as they did. Now, understandably, people then had a massive problem with Arsenal, and I'm one of those people, that just backed up everything I think about Arsenal as a club, the way they look down their nose at us. I've heard it for years. Oh, we don't buy players off you. You buy players off us. You buy all our cast-offs. Well, the shoe's on the other foot now, And what seems to have happened, in my opinion, is that because the hatred towards Arsenal has recently come to fruition for a lot of people, we really didn't want him to go to Arsenal. And I'm the same. I didn't want him to go to Arsenal. I couldn't have thought of anything worse. In fact, anywhere up north would have done me. And I was praying that City came in, which they did. But for whatever reason, City didn't want to match the final offer of 105 million that Arsenal submitted, that the club have now accepted. But if you really think that this move takes away any of the good that Declan Rice has done for us in his time at the club, then I just can't understand it. You know, I know people say that the phrase legend gets bandied around too much these days. But what is a legend? What is a club legend at West Ham? In the old days, a club legend was somebody like, Bobby Moore, Billy Bonds, who pretty much spent their whole career at the club, Trevor Brooking, who were claret and blue through and through, who obviously loved the club. In recent times, you could probably say Mark Noble was as close to a legend as we have. But players who spend their entire career at West Ham or any club, or the majority of their career at any club, they are a rarity these days. So a legend, in my mind, is not a legend how you would see a legend from back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even in Mark Noble's days at the club. We know that Declan Rice loves West Ham. Now, you may disagree with me. We know that Declan Rice loves the fans. He does. Why can't he kiss his badge? Why can't he video the fans at the end of that fantastic Europa Conference League win and applaud the fans and show love towards the fans? He does love the club. He does love the fans. But let me put this to you. Declan Rice, over the last 2-3 years, at times has pretty much shouldered all the responsibility of this club upon his young shoulders. Okay? He became club captain. Obviously, when Mark Noble left, he became captain on the field and off the field. And that's a massive responsibility. And when we was going through some terrible times in the league, which we know we have been, he was coming out doing interview after interview. He was facing the media. He was putting himself out there, which a lot of you will say, well, he has to do that. He's club captain. He's captain. He gets paid enough, doesn't he? We know he does. But can you imagine the stress, the almost, I suppose, at times humiliation of some of those performances, of some of those results? I can't for the life of me think that anyone would enjoy coming out and doing interviews, match of the day interviews, Sky Sports News interviews, where you constantly have to praise the manager, a manager who you may respect, but a manager who we know a lot of the playing staff questioned the tactics. A lot of the playing staff questioned the way he set up, the way we set up defensively, the way we set up inviting teams onto us. That's a hard thing for anyone to do, let alone a young man who, whether you like it or not, loves West Ham United. Now, I know I'm going to get a lot of comments in the chat about this, in the comment section, and you're welcome. And if you disagree, you're also welcome. But just in my mind, Declan Rice for West Ham United is a modern day legend. Week in, week out, puts his heart on the line, puts his body on the line, carries the team, plays in a midfield where, let's be honest, Thomas Soucek was pretty much invisible. Carrying a midfield where Lucas Paqueta took a little bit of time to get back to form, to find his feet in the Premier League. To constantly come out in the media and praise Moyes and praise the players and, try and put a good spin on things. It's tough. It's tough for anybody. And people will say, yeah, but he's sold us down the river. He's lied to us. Well, I'm not sure what you expect. If he's put on the spot by an interviewer, a microphone is shoved under his nose at any point, do you really think he's going to come out and say, yeah, I'm leaving? I'm going to leave the club at the end of the season. Do you really think after the Europa Conference trophy lift, when he was interviewed on the pitch, when they asked him about his future, do you really think that would have been the time to say, yeah, I'm definitely going? Because we know he was going. I've heard lots of rumours flying about on social media that the deal was done weeks ago, that Declan Rice's dad was supposedly having dinner with Arsenal representatives months ago. You know what? Probably, because that's the norm. Tapping up always happens and always has done and always will do. But who's to say he hasn't had a conversation with City? Who knows the situation there? Let's not second guess in order to trample upon the status that Declan Rice built at the club. Let's not be that fan base that builds them up and shoots them down as soon as we can. And look, I, more than anyone, hate the fact that it looks like he's going to Arsenal. I'm praying that the terms of the transfer go wrong. Something happens. It may not. It probably won't. All right. But we're going to have to accept that he's going to be playing for Arsenal. Now, I, like you, I don't think it's a great move for him. I don't see Arsenal as trophy winners anytime soon. I mean, especially if you look at the Premier League and the Champions League, they might win a Carabao Cup. They might win an FA Cup. But to me, Declan Rice probably just wants to play Premier League. That is what a lot of players mean when they say they want to play for trophies. Really, Champions League for a lot is the be-all and end-all. Now, unfortunately, we couldn't offer Declan Rice that. And maybe we never will. But if you look back 18 months ago in that January when we didn't invest, where we could have pushed on and challenged for Champions League, who knows? Who knows what could have happened? But who's to blame? Well, the blame for me lies solely at Sullivan's feet for that lack of investment at that time, which could have put us, it may not have worked out, but it could have put us in the Champions League. And then who knows how Declan Rice would have felt. I just think that people need to look at what he's achieved at the club, look at how he played for the club, look at how he never shirked a challenge, never shirked responsibility, and in my opinion, became a fantastic captain. I think that Declan Rice, even when he's early on in his captaincy of the club, he became a little bit of an easy target. He did struggle at first. I mean, it was, trying to be a captain in a team that's not performing well is a tough gig, especially for somebody who, was new to the role. I'm not here to applaud Declan Rice's decision to go to Arsenal. I'm not here to say that when he comes back and plays against us, which for me will be tough to watch, as I'm sure it will you, I'm not going to boo him. But I'm not going to clap him. I will have no reaction, really. And I hope fans don't boo him, because to me, that would really darken the memory. That would be a tough thing to take for me personally. But if you want to boo, that's your choice. I'm not telling anyone what to do, and I respect your opinion. The loss of Declan Rice is massive, and the void that he's going to leave in the centre midfield is huge. And, we've got to look at the positives. We've got a lot of money to spend. And the new director of football, Tim Steedman, is joining the club on the 1st of July, as we're told. And that in itself is going to be a massive, massive thing for the club. We've never had a director of football before. We know that David Moyes isn't a big fan of director of footballs. So why is Sullivan employed a director of football. Not only that, why has David Sullivan employed a director of football when we have a manager who has a year left on his contract? What type of players are we going to be bringing in? Are we going to be bringing in players that suit Moyes' system and Moyes' role? Is the director of football going to have an overriding power where he single-handedly chooses the new ethos or the new way that the club want to play? I'm not so sure what's going to happen. But I'll tell you something. It just looks like another way of David Sullivan getting involved and just causing trouble for trouble's sake. I mean, David Moyes could not be any further afield from somebody that likes being challenged. We know what happened with the coaching staff. We saw Warburton's interview last week when he said he left because basically he didn't want their friendship to suffer. He didn't want to clash on their philosophies or the styles, clash of styles, clash of philosophies of the way football should be played. I mean, that in itself to me speaks volumes. But I also question Warburton because he doesn't want to ruin his friendship with David Moyes. But he's had 2 interviews, one on Hammer's Chat and one on Sky Sports, where he's basically thrown Moyes under the bus. So it seems a little bit odd. It's all a little bit odd. But, Tim Steidman has a fantastic track record of bringing in almost unknown players to some of the teams he's worked at. He has found some great young stars. His achievements in finding these players is second to none. I'm hoping that he comes with a back catalogue, a portfolio of players that he would recommend that we can get on the cheap and get the best out of, i.e. like this famous Red Bull model that is so often banded around. But I don't think he's going to walk into anything like he's going to walk into at West Ham. He's going to be in the middle of 2 men who are massive egomaniacs, who are massive control freaks, who like to do things their way, i.e. Moyes and Sullivan. And I just hope that Steedman has a personality, a robust personality, where he can put his foot down and actually say what he thinks is best for the club going forward. Look, it's a massive risk. It's always a massive risk. But with our type of manager and with our type of ownership, I think it's even more of a risk. But we'll see. We will see. In other news, there's a lot of things flying about. We've seen that Paqueta has changed agent. Obviously, a lot of people have, are concerned about this because we know Scamacca changed agent, and then as soon as he changed agent, he almost instantaneously started being linked with a move away from West Ham United. Now Paqueta's changed agent, and almost instantaneously in the French newspaper L'Equipe, PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, are apparently preparing to make a bid for Paqueta. Now, we have spoke to somebody who says that Paqueta doesn't have a release clause in his contract and no bids or inquiries have been made for Paqueta. Now, just because a journalist says something's happening doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be true. For me, Paqueta he was fantastic towards the end of the season. But for me, Paqueta now is probably the player we need to build the club around. We probably need to bring in another 2 midfielders to not only replace Rice, but also, in my mind, replace Souček, who I say, as we all say, was almost a passenger for a big part of the season, if not all. Now, it's funny I should talk about Souček because I also read a little snippet that apparently Napoli in Italy, they are interested in signing Souček on a cut price deal due to the fact that his contract is expiring. Now, people are going to say it's no loss. And based on his form, I'd probably have to agree. But all this needs to be wrapped up pretty quickly. We need to get bodies in. You need to constantly reinvest to just stay where you were. You know, we've lost our talisman, our maverick. We've lost our heartbeat in Declan Rice, in my opinion. And we need to move pretty quickly. Steidman and Moyes need to bang their heads together and get players in that can fill that void, that can fill that hole. Now, if Souček goes to Napoli in a cut price deal, as I said, he's not going to be a massive loss, but it's still another body we have to replace. You've also got Jared Bowen, who hasn't yet signed his contract. I'm not particularly panicking over that because I know a lot of the players are away. Moyes is in Miami somewhere. Tim Steidman hasn't joined the club yet, and we know that Sullivan is on his kinky boat somewhere with his new missus, who likes to dance topless. You know, the danger for me is that Moyes gets to build a team in the Moyes fashion and it doesn't work. And then he gets sacked or he runs through to the end of his contract and then we're left with a Moyes team. This is why this appointment is so unusual of the director of football. I really hope that the director of football, Steidman, is going to have full control. I can't see it, but I think that's generally how it does work, and really that's how it should work. But he's no stranger to getting rid of coaches. You know, he's got rid of many coaches in the past where he's been. Also, interestingly, the other rumour that's come about again is that Ben Johnson has been linked with Arsenal. Apparently, Arsenal are looking at him as a backup player. Well, Ben Johnson is pretty much a backup player at West Ham at the minute. And, I mean, you could say David Moyes is to blame. And maybe Johnson does need to move away to come good. But I'd like Johnson to stay. But I just don't think he works for Moyes. I just think that, you know, I think Moyes has sort of took away his confidence, really. To some extent, what he did with Benny. But anyway, look, that's enough from me. Let's look forward instead of looking back. Let's hope that this new director of football that we're bringing in on the 1st of July, let's hope this is turning of a new page at West Ham United. Ultimately, though, as long as we've got David Sullivan, the Gimp, in charge, I genuinely think the circus will continue. I hope, and I want to be proven wrong. And I just want to end this video by saying, I hope you haven't took this as a personal attack, anybody, but we're all entitled to opinions. For me, Declan Rice will be a legend. I won't applaud him. I won't boo him when he comes back to the London Stadium. I want him to do well. I want him to play well. But I don't want him to win trophies, because that means the Mandem at Arsenal Football Club will also be winning trophies. And I can't envisage that. But anyway, if you like the show, please hit the like button. If you don't already subscribe, please do so. Claret and Booze at YouTube. And if you leave any comments, I respect your comments. I will answer as many as I can. If you want to insult me, that's fine. But give your head a wobble. Yeah? Remember what Rice has done for us. Come on, you irons.